BJ Show. I'm Brad. That is John. Together we make Brad and John Show. It's amazing how that happens. John Combest, that's the guy. John, say good morning, John.
Hey, good morning, guys.
John is the guy that gets up early or stays up late or does both of them to do all sorts of research on the things you need to know about going on in the state of Missouri. He has this website he runs called johncombest.com, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. You can spell John. You can spell .com. You can figure that out. And every single day he puts together this list. Lots of things. Nothing fancy. No graphics, no video, no pop-up ads or anything like that. It's just sort of old school internet, but it's very efficient because you go on his site, you click on a link, and it takes you to the story that you need to know about. But what we do is with this station right here, we bring in this guy right here.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what we do is we start off with this one, and John goes to town.
In third place,
Brad, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the St. Louis Business Journal are reporting that a friend of the show, somebody that we've talked about quite a bit, they're reporting that Bill Eigel is running for St. Charles County Executive. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch quotes Eigel saying, quote, "I'm coming home," Eigel said Monday on the Brad and John Show on 104.5 FM, KSLQ. "I have always enjoyed a tremendous amount of support from the people here in St. Charles County." So, Brad, Bill Eigel is running for St. Charles County Executive. Did you hear that anywhere yesterday, Brad?
Yes, it was you and I, John, and this morning Marc Cox went off on us.
Oh, I'm sure in your mind he did.
No, seriously, he did.
Yeah. What did he have to say?
He said that they were the first, and someone else. He talked about the fact that it was in the Post-Dispatch and the Business Journal, and that he had it first, that we didn't, and we did something unscrupulous by getting into the paper.
I would love to actually hear what he had to say, because clearly he didn't. I know he didn't say that. But let's talk about something important from that story, Brad, and then we could circle back to the imaginary
John, hold a minute. He did say that. I don't know if he used the word unscrupulous, but he essentially referred to the fact that they were first and we manipulated. He said something. It wasn't a compliment, John. But now, here, before you go any further, I'm going to stop you just right here. Mm-hmm. This is in tune with my goals with this radio station, okay? Marc Cox, excellent talk show host. He has a co-host, wonderful, Kim St. Onge, 97.1.
Yeah.
We have what I used to call the J3 boys, which back in the days were John Beck, Jeff Allen, and Joe Rush. Even though I've had my not so good dealings with them, they run a great radio station. You can listen to it on, 94.1 out in St. Charles County. In the St. Louis City area, you listen to it on 101.9. Tracy Ellis and her husband, Rick Ellis, who, once again, I helped Tracy get on the radio, almost 20 years ago or something like that. And if I were on fire, Tracy wouldn't walk across the street to piss on me to put me out. But once again, Tracy started out very badly, runs a pretty damn good radio station right now. Who am I missing? Who's the other?
I think that's plenty. Yeah,
okay,
I think that's plenty.
So, but this is my point. Do you think that any of those stations would give us the time of day to say, boy, yesterday Brad and John scooped everybody with this Bill Eigel thing?
Hey, well, here's the thing. First of all, we don't need it. I mean, I can't speak for you, but I don't need it. I'd also point out that I'm proud to say, Brad, I don't know how many years I've linked to the Marc Cox Morning Show. And I'm happy for all the times I sent viewers of my website to Marc Cox's show. Marc Cox doesn't need me linking to his website, but I'm happy to do it because he has fantastic guests on there.
But see,
I love his show. You're
making my point in that you do that, and you see, this is what I think is terribly wrong with our industry, is that and once again, there's terrible infighting among stations, and yet who are we really competing against? I'm not competing against 97.1, maybe to a certain degree. I'm competing for ears and dollars, okay? Those ears and dollars are on Meta, Alphabet, places like that, okay? And the more the radio stations compete among themselves and say, oh, those people over there are terrible people, don't listen to their station. I'm the guy who's saying, hey, look, it's 7:07 right now on a Tuesday morning. If you don't like what we're talking about, you can tune over to 97.1. You can tune over to 94.1.
We'd be remiss, Brad, if we're talking about that. We'd be remiss to not point out that there are people like Annie Frey. If I tweet or post something from Annie Frey is so gracious that she'll retweet stuff if we talk about her, and she doesn't need me. Annie Frey doesn't need me to link to her. Her audience is incredible. But I link to her when she has Eric Schmidt or Will Scharf or any of those folks on because she does such a great job. I'd say the same thing. I say the same thing about Marc Cox and Kim St. Onge. And I love Drew Shelton. I love Ryan Haidt, like all those guys. And I link to their stuff on my website because they have great stuff,
But see, you're not, well, you are in this business because you're on the air with me, but you're not part of the radio industry where
I'm not of this business.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's what frustrates me. Well, you talk about Annie Frey, one of the nicest people you ever want to meet, does an excellent talk show, has been, has won, I think twice she's won national awards. Once again, we should be proud of the fact that we've got people like that here in St. Louis. But yet, if you listen to the people over 93.3, they're going to tell you, oh, that's Rhino Radio. Don't listen to them. You know what I mean? That's what, that's what, and to a certain extent, that's the situation that I don't like about Bill Eigel. I'll be honest with you. I don't like that about Bill Eigel. And it's interesting. You sent me that link from your buddy Scott Fawn doing his, what is it, TWMT, what is it called again now?
Oh, yeah, This Week in Missouri Politics Daily, TWMP and Daily now, yeah.
Okay, you sent me the link where he talked about the fact that we talked about this yesterday, and he gave his analysis of Bill Eigel and Mike Elam, and I think he was spot on. Mike Elam is the kind of guy, is what I say, steady hand on the wheel, like with
yeah. He calls himself a plug-and-play kind of guy.
Right, whereas Bill Eigel just wants to blow things up, okay? And that's his nature. I get it, and that's what Scott Fawn said. And once again, when you got a county like St. Charles County, where things are doing pretty well, once again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. St. Louis City, it's broke, fix it. You know what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying. Well, let's get back to the story real quick, Brad. And first of all, this isn't going to stop me from listening to Marc Cox in the morning. I'll be surprised if I go back. And it's not that I don't take your word for it, Brad, but I would be surprised that unless he's got some sort of a real beef with you, that he would be upset because we have Bill on after he's on. Like if Marc Cox is upset, he should probably be upset at like a reporter that's reporting it. I don't know. I'm not going to get involved in that. I think Marc Cox does a great job. Let me make my original point.
Well, hold on.
Which is that.
Let me interrupt you one more time.
Okay, let's belabor this.
Belabor this. I can't let this go. You said it to me yesterday when you texted. Why did we get this?
Okay, hey, Brad, maybe we can keep private text between us. How about that? And the great thing, Brad, yesterday when we were on the air, I got a text from somebody who knows St. Charles County really well, and who texted me and said, hey, what about Jason Law? And as we talked about it yesterday, Brad, on, as part of my error, I forgot to mention Jason Law, who is the mayor of Lake St. Louis, who is sitting on a ton of cash and who says he's going to run for St. Charles County Executive. So mea culpa on that. I forgot to mention Jason Law.
And you know what the problem with that is?
What's that?
Because if you go too fast, he's going to pull you over because I believe he's still a St. Louis County police officer.
So, Brad, it was great yesterday. I neglected to mention Jason Law. So there will probably, as of now, there are at least 3 announced candidates. And as Scott Fawn pointed out on TWMP Daily, it would if you have a bunch of candidates in this race, it definitely benefits Bill Eigel. So who knows? Maybe there will be a stop Eigel candidate, and it'll either be Mike Elam or Jason Law.
I think it should be John Combest. I think
absolutely not. Well, first of all, I don't live in St. Charles County.
Well, you
Brad,
can move.
So let's start there.
Well,
and we know what a stickler you are for everybody's got to live in their district, and I'm not going to vote for somebody unless they live in their district and unless they knock 7,000 doors. They don't need to be raising money. They need to be knocking on doors and spending 40 minutes talking to a grandpa and wasting their time. Hey, Brad, you know who's not wasting their time? Congressman Eric Burlison.
Is he number 2?
He is. Let's get off this topic.
Up a notch to number 2.
Someone who appears on Marc Cox's show, who I happen to link to quite a bit, Marc Cox's show, but also, Brad, somebody who was on KSGF, Mornings with Nick Reed. Congressman Eric Burlison from the southwest part of the state talked about a gamut of issues with Nick yesterday, including, Brad, something that we haven't talked about because we were a little busy yesterday. David Hogg elected vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. Did you see this, Brad?
You know what? Those people need help because if you listen to what their messaging is, why did Kamala Harris not be elected president? Because of sexist and misogynistic and racist. I'm going like, They don't get it, do they? You know what I mean? They don't get it.
Yes.
The Dems just don't get it.
And so I'd also point out that I have a couple timestamps up today from Nick Reed's show. By the way, he's on from 6 to 9 a.m. on KSGF in Springfield. I linked to his podcast archive today, too. I haven't done that in a while, but Nick Reed does a great job down there at KSGF. Anyway, Brad, he also talks about DEI, the FAA, the recent plane crashes, talks a little bit about tariff and what the differences might be between a Trump tariff and what we might have seen from the Bush or Obama or Biden administration, how they might have gone about it differently. But, Brad, I don't mean to get too premature into story number one, but you mentioned how out of touch the left is, and that's in story number one today.
Oh, we moving around that already?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, here we go.
The number one.
A group therapy session down in Springfield, Brad, and I'm glad you brought up the fact that Democrats and folks on the left seem to be going the whole racist and Republicans or bigots route. A nice event in Springfield, which was organized by the NAACP and a few others who we'll get to in a little bit. But down there, Brad, there's a gentleman, a community organizer, and he wants to remind everybody that when you take a look at what Trump's trying to do, it's probably going to be a return to Jim Crow or even a little bit worse. And, Brad, this event was sponsored by some really progressive folks like the League of Women Voters. You know, they're the groups that around the state, they take trips to the Capitol, they shuffle around. They had some old bat on this panel that was complaining about Trump. They also Promo, which is the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, various alphabet letters there. They had some folks from the NAACP. So they turned out, Brad, to their credit, at least 275 people. And I should point out that this story is brought to us by the Springfield News Leader. So almost 300 people gather for kind of a group therapy session in Springfield because we need to prepare for the fact that, Brad, we're not just returning to Jim Crow, but it might be a little bit worse this time.
John, you know what? These stories just exhaust me because to me, this is just... I don't even know what to say. This is just so over the top. I mean, and once again, the thing that I find interesting is that here's something that I think that this guy's going to latch on, which happened yesterday. Did you hear this thing about Marco Rubio? Did you hear about he met with the president of El Salvador? And
I didn't hear this.
Yeah, well, now I believe it's El Salvador. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong 95% of the time, but maybe I'm right on this one. Okay, but the interesting part of the story was they once again are agreeing to take back the illegals. Plus, and this is the interesting point, they even said that if we have some American criminals that we would like to put in the El Salvadorian jail, I guess that's how you say it, they'd be more than happy to take them. And
well, wait a minute. Will our criminals be able to play PS5 and get really good food from the commissary?
Well, the interesting point of that is already the ACLU people are going, oh, my God, we got to file some lawsuits against this. We can't have our criminals being in foreign jails. Just like you said, the David Hogg thing, okay? I read this interesting story that supposedly he wasn't at school that day. Did you hear this bizarre, weird story?
No, I didn't hear that. Now, is that true?
I don't know. I've heard it twice now. Have
you been listening to Alex Jones
No,
again?
I have not. I heard this from two different sources, that David Hogg was not in school that day, or I don't know what the deal is. But if you know who David Hogg is, he was one of the kids that came out of the shooting in, what was that? Was that Parkland High School? Was that down in Florida? Was that the one? Wasn't it Parkland?
Yeah, I don't know the name of the high school.
Okay. And terrible thing where one of the students went nuts and shot a bunch of kids and a bunch of teachers. Horrible situation. Absolutely, positively horrible. And now I guess he's went to college. I think he went to Harvard. I don't know if he's got his JD or not. He was going to be an attorney. Now he's the number 2 guy of the Democratic Party. I don't think that's the kind of people that are going to move the Democratic Party where they need to be. And I think that if you see, yesterday was the third, was it the second end of 2 weeks from Trump? Wasn't it end of 2 weeks yesterday? He was inaugurated on the 20th, so yesterday would have been 2 weeks. Okay.
Or 3 weeks maybe, right?
No, the 20th.
No, you're right. Wow, boy, you're right, though, Brad. It seems like forever. You're right, because it was the 20th.
Right, the 20th, 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Look at the whirlwind of changes that have happened. Some people could say, oh, this is terrible. But I got to gripe a little bit about my situation. I mean, my personal situation. What's frustrating to me is there's so many aspects of the federal government that become dysfunctional. And I am hoping that all the crazy, weird changes that Trump's doing, that these people who are sitting like think, well, I got a civil service job. Nobody going to touch me. I'm in the union. I'm a civil service union member. Nobody going to touch me. I'm hoping that some of these people are going like, OMG, maybe I had better clean up my act and really do my job well. Get what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, it's a jolt to the system that hasn't been there. And Brad, you talk a lot about disruptors, and this is what we voted for. As America, well, at least X number million of us voted to shake this whole thing up.
But I think it's gotten so interesting in that the media, and let's be honest, in the newsroom, 34 people in the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom. John, how many of those 34 people do you think voted for Trump? Take a guess.
Maybe one.
Oh, no, I was setting you up for your classic line.
Oh, okay, hold on. Can you try it again? Ask me
yes,
again.
John, of the 34 members of the NPR news staff at KWMU, how many of you think voted for Trump?
0.0.
Thank you, Dean Wormer. Okay, but the point being is the mainstream media, all the big channels, you see what's going on with CBS, and that's interesting. That's something maybe we're talking about in B Block with this fascinating lawsuit that's going on against CBS and 60 Minutes, if you know about that whole crazy story, is that's the mainstream press. And we've had that thrown down, pushed down our throats for a long time. Okay, people are tired of that. They're still debating. There's a big whole thing. Have you heard this crazy thing? This guy's written a book about, the campaign already, and he's talking about the Joe Rogan thing with Trump and with Kamala. Have you heard this whole interesting part of it is?
No, I haven't.
It's fascinating because of the fact that he's chronicling the negotiations that went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between the Joe Rogan people. I don't know if it was Joe himself, probably his people. My people are called your people, that kind of stuff. And it was fascinating because of the fact that the Kamala Harris campaign was like, Joe Rogan, nobody listens to him. We need to be with Oprah. We need to be with Bruce Springsteen. And how
Beyonce. Don't forget
right,
Beyonce.
And how they totally misread where the American public is at right now. That they're not into all these people. They're not into. It's just like the Grammys. The other night. It's interesting. I heard this yesterday in another radio station. I don't remember who it was. I'm punching buttons. And they said, they talk about the fact that the United States is so biased. And they said, okay, the three top Grammy Award winners, we got a black guy, a black woman, and a gay woman, right? We've got, or whatever she is.
Chapel, and they handed the Country Music Award to a black woman because she's black.
Right. And so in other words, you've got this situation where we're so terribly biased. There was no white people on there won any awards. How can you say, oh my God, this country is so terrible? No, things have changed, and the problem is that nobody cares what Jane Pauley says. I mean, she started yesterday's, but David Muir and people like that, they're listening to Joe Rogan. They're listening to they're listening to the guy from I saw one just yesterday. I never heard of these guys, the Trailer Park Boys. Have you heard of these guys before?
No, I haven't.
Pretty interesting. They have a big following as well too. They're listening to, Outkick. They're listening to Barstool Sports. They're listening to all this stuff because once again, you have a period of time when the reason the Post-Dispatch became a big newspaper was because nobody could afford to build the infrastructure it would take to print a daily newspaper and get it out on the stands every single day. And the same situation with all the network TV stations. The same thing with all the local TV stations. And quite honestly, the same thing with all the radio stations. Now, in your hand, you hold the gateway to every bit of information in the known world in your hot little hand as far as an Android and an iPhone, and the mainstream media is still going, oh, but people, they have to watch us at 5:30 to get the national news, right? I mean, they don't get it anymore.
Yeah, it's such an outdated model that's been broken.
Right. Okay, can you tell I'm fired up
Now,
this
but
morning?
hey, the other thing though, Brad, real quick, I know we're up against break, but I did appreciate that David Hogg said he was bringing his grandpa back, Boss Hogg. So he comes from a long lineage of hogs. You know what I mean?
You know, there are a few names that if I was born with that name, I would change it. You know, there's
David Hogg, yes.
There used to be, I don't know if you know this or not, there used to be a Toyota dealer in Columbia. Do you know about the Toyota dealer in Columbia?
No, I don't.
I thought it was a joke. A friend of mine went to school there, and honest to God, we went down to Columbia one time, and I kept kidding about it. There's no Toyota dealer by that name in Columbia. Literally, we stopped at a phone booth, and remember in the old days, you're maybe not old enough, but in the old days, not only do you have phone booths, but a lot of them have phone books in the phone booth.
Yeah, I remember that.
So he jumped out of he says, stop, I'm driving. He says, let me pull over. Here's a phone booth. He gets out of the car, goes up to a phone booth, and rips the yellow pages out of the yellow pages to show me, pulls it out of the phone book, and the name of the Toyota dealer was Richard Head Toyota. Okay?
Wow.
And once again,
maybe I'll start calling you Richard Head, Brad.
once again, I would change my name. And if I were a father and my last name was Head, and I would not name my kid Richard, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, we do have to take a break. We're off to a calamitous start. Would that be an interesting way to put it?
That's fantastic, yeah.